Welcome to the Soulscape Show with your host and intuitive multidimensional channel and soul healer, Gabrielle Spencer. You can find all Soulscape shows and free gifts from our special guests found at soulscape.tv, and this is season 4. We are so blessed to have with us Kasey and Brad Wallis and the energy known as Julius that comes through to teach and guide. Since Brad's near-death experience, they have been conduits for an advanced intelligence named Julius, a higher light teaching group which offers messages of empowerment and enlightenment for humanity. For over 10 years, the Wallises have been inviting people worldwide to embrace their true limitlessness. Our topic for discussion is the difference between low and high consciousness, the key most people miss. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Gabrielle Spencer, your host of the Soulscape Show. I thank you all for being here and joining us live tonight for our very special guests, Kasey and Brad Wallis and Julius. These three are amazing and fun. I always think of them as fun. I think I wrote it about 10 times in my email because every time I connect with them, I spend more time laughing, giggling, and smiling as we're talking about higher consciousness topics, which I think is the best combination of learning and evolving and having fun doing it, right? Not getting caught up always in just, it's so dogmatic. Thankfully, it isn't, right? It's ever changing and evolving. And these guys are on the cusp of what is happening right now, but they've been on that cusp for a really long time. So I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you. Now, Kasey and Brad, I know that you guys have a lot to share. So Brad, since you've had a long day working,
it's okay. It's all good.
Would like us most to know about you and what you feel about what's going on right now in this crazy, crazy energetic world.
How do I feel about it, or what do I think?
Whatever you want to share. Yeah, it's an open.
Right out of the gate, huh? That's really what you want to start with?
Yes.
Go!
I know what I really want to say, Brad. I'm just going to set you up right here because this is what I love about Kasey and Brad.
Go ahead. That's a good question to ask because that really sets the tone for, especially because I know Julius will correct me if I overstep my bounds just a little bit. But everyone involved in this whole scenario that's playing itself out right now in the world, not just the U.S., but around the world. There's a lot of players involved in this, and part of the players are us. And whether we decide to get involved in it and believe everything that's being thrown at us, or whether we want to rely on our conscious awareness and the way we feel about all of this, it's going to separate people pretty fast because human beings have a tendency to get way too overreactive without thinking first. And this is an occasion where everybody needs to take a huge breath, relax for a little bit, and don't overreact before they do things, because by the time you react to something, something else is going to happen, because all they're trying to do is just keep everybody in a state of confusion so you can't think straight.
They got it pretty timed out pretty well. And let's launch this today, and let's launch this today, and let's launch this today. We were kind of joking going, and the aliens come on the 11th, okay? The aliens are going to land, what is going to be, get the actors ready for, that big set that we've got, that same set that we use for so many other things. And let's get, the blue avians here and scare the shit out of everybody. And, there's a lot of distraction a lot of distraction going on. And it's really interesting, Gabrielle, because, you know, as practitioners, or so many practitioners have been talking about this, you know, wave of stuff that's been coming, supposedly going to come in 2020. And nobody predicted the rug, you know, being yanked out from underneath. Although Julius kept saying a couple of years ago, when everybody was kind of ramping up, you know, and just kept talking about this change coming, change coming. And Julius wasn't saying much, and people were prompting and poking Julius on their opinion about this so-called, you know, wave of energy and consciousness that was coming. And all Julius kept saying was, are you sure you all want that to take place? Because you don't have any idea what it takes to create that. Of course, everybody kind of just was like, well, no, we want this to take place, we want this to take place. So it's really, really interesting, a couple of different things, the sorting out that kind of takes place, but also the revealment of exactly where you are. You think you're in a particular place, and then you get that rug yanked out from underneath you, and you see what your reactiveness is. That's where you are on your conscious journey. You're not up here because everything's golden goblets and rainbows. It's when the stuff hits the fan and how you either respond or react to that that's going to throw that mirror right up to you, which gives you the opportunity to see yourself with more clarity so that you can possibly move with more clarity and awareness, or get locked down and bogged down in that survival instinct state. And so we are affectionately saying that it is revealment time, you know, for everybody to see themselves, for people to possibly see more about the group of people they're hanging out with or following, and really where the Earthship is. Julius has always said that the Earthship is not in a state of high consciousness, but there's a very small percentage of people actually that are authentically reaching for high consciousness, and everything else is staying in what Julius describes as second level of consciousness or social consciousness. And those percentages are proving themselves pretty rapidly. And of course, that doesn't mean that it's hopeless. It still is about you creating your reality for your own self based on your perspective and inspiring, you know, others. It's the same journey. It's the same thing that we've been going through for a long time, but maybe there's just a little bit more of, like I said, the windows, I think the windows are now unfogged. They're very, very clear. You get to make a lot of little, a lot of major shifts and pivots in your life right now, should you choose to do that.
Okay, I want to ask you about that. I agree with everything you've both said. This is a real culling of what and where you are. And for a lot of people, this has been a shocker, not because we weren't prepared, but because you realize something's wrong and you still can't figure out what it is you need to do to get on the right side of it, right? So how, with this consciousness disparity, because that's what is really showing up, is that for a lot of us, we all have this idea of where we're going and how we're going there and who we're listening to and how we're getting our information. And so in this process, we're seeing a lot of things. I know for myself, I have been for a while referencing The Emperor Has New Clothes for a long time because there's a lot.
We did the same reference. So interesting. Yeah, right.
So,
yeah.
How do our fellow warriors of light, light workers, way showers, whatever you identify, how do you find within yourself where your disparity is in your consciousness journey? Because there is a disparity. That's what this is showing us, right? We all did a call like in early March where we were talking about COVID, and I was talking about it was about our sovereignty and maintaining our sovereignty. And so we've seen how that is playing out. And now there's this next level, which is this disparity of consciousness, which you're talking about. What is missing? What is it that people need to see so that they can adjust, right?
Well, the two things that will be attacked to dismantle power is your empowerment and individualism or separation. So what they will do is they will definitively enforce the perspective, the need for separation, okay? Because in that, we separate from the knowing that we are God. That's the first separation, okay? Yes. Then that's going to trickle down into every aspect of our own lives. And so if they can continue to reinforce the need to separate and show continually how easily we separate our own selves, they've got us caught in this distraction that will pull us away from the desire to know ourselves and how fully empowered we are. And they've been doing this for many years. This has come across many years ago on the social media platforms, where things started to be manipulated on what it is that you could see. And people responded so beautifully, right in alignment to what they had projected to do, which was to mindlessly follow and initiate reactive response based on fear. And they just kept feeding it to us. This is classic brainwashing. Classic textbook brainwashing, that this stuff has been methodical for years, from the social media platforms to every single news resource out there, okay? And all they've got to do is get everybody arguing and ensuing anger and fear and judgment on themselves, and you have been completely dismantled from your power. And they will, and it's working. And they just keep doing a little more and a little more and a little more. And it's keeping everybody from, number one, going into their own clarity and awareness state. What it has done is it's caused people to no longer trust their instincts. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it's a beautiful aspect of disempowerment. So when you ask what it is can be done, this is the ultimate inward journey. We always talk about consciousness being this inward journey, and everything's all great when golden goblets and rainbows are going on in your life, and all you have to do is manifest a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But when the stuff hits the fan and completely knocks you off your center, what do you do to collect yourself? Okay, well, going inward is always been the least point of interest for human embodiments. It's the least thing that they want to do. If you follow every single type of practice application out there, everything has always had people looking for something outside of themselves that's going to solve the problem for them.
Someone's going to step in and take care of it. Someone's going to come and save everybody.
Well, and it's still, even spirituality. We've moved from religion telling you that a savior is coming to spiritual people are now saying saviors are coming. The universe is going to save you. The wave of energy is going to save you. It's like, no. You're still supporting something happening for us instead of us doing the work. Now, there are supportive energy fields that are starting to engage themselves per our design for our own selves. But you have got to still jump in the capacity of responsibility for collectively handling your own mindfulness and your clarity awareness state to maintain your capacity. And then that capacity has the opportunity to rocket fuel itself based on the energy frequencies are activated in the astral plane around the third dimensional paradigm right now. So what is taking place is this awakening of recognizing where the majority is still sitting. Am I going to settle for that? Am I going to give in to that? Am I going to give up on this thing that I thought was going to be so magnificent and go into hiding and put the mask on and judge my neighbors and get out there and riot and throw bricks in people's livelihoods and their stores and everything that is shutting some of the cities down? Am I going to just chuck everything that I have been hopeful for and fall into this survival instinct reactive state? Or am I going to see this so clearly now and find extreme joy in the clarity? Boy, if I thought I was doubtful before, I have lost all my doubt as to exactly where we have been sitting illusionary-wise for the last few years, and make my strong pivot into what I desire to hold as a truth for myself, demonstrate that truth to others, create a reality for myself based on my own knowing. Now, this is kind of a, are you going to stay or are you going to go? Are you going to stay, you're going to go? Or is it just the process that takes place when extraordinary opportunity ensues? It's part of what you have seen as humanity in a reflex upon itself from century to century to century. And quite frankly, when human embodiments have oftentimes had the opportunity to claim their power, they have instead retreated and hidden far away from that power, which just gives the opportunity for those claiming the power in a fear-based application to find new ways to imprison you. It happens all the time. It happens from century to century, from civilization to civilization. And embodiments have come at this time, in this paradigm, to once again, they have incarnated themselves to give themselves the opportunity to choose differently this time than they have so commonly found a pattern for their own selves. The thing that human embodiments are obviously coming to terms with is, number one, are they okay with death? Death is an illusion, but they're finding that they're very afraid of death. All of this recognition. We have always supported that your soul will enter into an experience and exit from an experience when it chooses to do so. Nothing kills you. You can't be killed. First of all, there's no such thing as death, so that's a complete illusion. But your soul is always in creative expression of itself. And if you're not right with that, you're going to be so easily manipulated because everything can threaten your life. Yes. And the other thing is very clearly that fears you the most is how powerful you are. And everybody retreats from that because that means that there would be nothing or no one to blame for all of the shortcomings or what you perceive to be bad things out there. And when you come and eliminate those two fears, everything shifts. Now, is it going to shift for the mass if the mass decides to take that perspective? Yes. But primarily, it's all about what you're going to be experiencing in your own reality field and finding and creating your experience here, or simply taking the position of victimhood another time until you incarnate yourself another time and try it again, because that's the pattern that you're in, right?
Right. It is the pattern that we're in. The victimizer is the third dimensional consciousness matrix programming. I mean, they're only reinforcing it and everybody is buying into it again, going, oh my God, when we've done all this work to free ourselves and get rid of all the garbage for how long now, right? And everybody is really having to evaluate how that's affecting them. Like you said, I agree that the death thing, wow, we really need to do some work on this conscious collective idea of death, right? Yeah. But I want to ask you a question, because this is one that I've really been pondering, and I have a very strong emotion about it. And we all know that when we have strong emotion, you know, so we're working through it. But this has definitely triggered for me the remembrance of Atlantis.
Yeah, and for so many people.
Wow, and I was going to say that when you asked me to say something at the very beginning.
Hey, Brad, tell us, because obviously we're all getting similar stuff. Yeah. So I'd love to know your opinion. What are you feeling? What are you getting? Advice? Anything?
Well, I guess it depends on your perspective, because for a lot of people, Atlantis didn't go very well for some.
No, really?
Especially you were like right in the mix of getting blown up by one of the, yeah. By the way, he still blames me for that. You know, that's something that we still.
That's a whole nother story.
You sent me to get blown up in Atlantis. I'm like, you need to get over that. That was like, 45,000 years ago. Okay.
I just want to say the other reason I love you both is because, my God, you remind me of me and my husband. I swear. Okay, but that's another conversation. When we all get together, we'll share about how come that is so. But anyway, please tell us about Atlantis.
There's a huge division right now with the Lemurian. Yeah, back in those days, what were known as Lemurians and what were known as Atlanteans, and of course all the little fractalized fractions or factions of groups that were tied to either of them. And a lot of this, for those of us who remember being there or can think about being there and have that experience embedded in their soul, they know that what's going on today and around the world is not too far off of what happened then.
Yeah.
And that there will be spiritual leaders who will stand up as there was then. There will be spiritual leaders who will stand up and speak, and depending upon whether humans have learned anything or not, the outcome could very well become the same thing over and over again. We get told all the time that all we do is repeat ourselves.
So what I want to say is, it is our interpretation that the Atlanteans held the Lemurians captive energetically. That the Lemurians were the spiritual beings, that the Atlanteans were the technologically advanced beings. You typically had the science and spirituality and conflict with each other. And that the Atlanteans had basically convinced the Lemurians that the Atlanteans possessed the Lemurians' soul.
They owned their souls.
So the Lemurians had their power extracted from them. The Atlanteans had convinced them of this through actions, through reactiveness, through a process of brainwashing and convincing, and that the Lemurians were out to get their souls back. Now, this is very, very common, once again, where your power is seemingly being drained from your capacity. You've lost your facilities, you've lost your power, you've lost your power to choose, and they've thrust you into reactiveness. You've lost your minds, basically, okay? As far as your conscious awareness, mindfulness, okay? Everybody is losing that and falling into the suggestive programming of disempowerment. So that is running in a parallel possibility. The great thing now, though, is that which has been used to control you also has the capacity to unleash you, because the technological advancement in communication is now very, very advanced compared to what it was there. And you can find the programming out there to support your conscious journey. You didn't have that back then. You basically had no choice back then, but you have choice this time. You created choices for yourselves, and people are running just to the one side of fear. And we're like, wait, there's all this other stuff for you to choose from. So that's the great news. You are still, as always, sitting in the opportunity of free will and creation for yourself. And fear has always seemed to have bound you for a countless amount of time, from first application of you coming here to the earth. And you keep incarnating yourselves as aspects of physical beings to see if you can finally work your way through the distraction of the physical and find your authentic power. And if you don't do it this time, you're going to regurgitate yourself, you're going to regurgitate yourself, you're going to regurgitate yourself. And it's all about getting into the practice of mindfulness. So when we talk about going on a conscious journey, what in the hell does a conscious journey mean? Okay? It means that you are going to choose with awareness capacity the thoughts that you process and the emotions that you fuel those thoughts with, which ultimately create a reality for you to know yourself in. Unconscious people don't do that. They take the thoughts projected on them and they respond the way that everybody is telling them to respond, and they've lost their capacity for creativity. They're in full reactive mode. And as you set yourself on a conscious journey, you have decided to take on the discipline of choice rather than the disempowered state of force feeding onto you a singular choice. Because what's going on right now is a force feeding application of fear. And people are biting on that. And you don't have to choose that. You can choose. There are people who are not living in that fear-based reality. We guarantee you, we are interacting with them on a daily basis, and this stuff isn't spilling over into their experience or their conscious journey. In fact, it's inspiring their conscious journey.
And those are the ones.
And that's power.
Yeah.
Can you let this rug that's been yanked underneath you, out from underneath you, become your magic carpet and ride with it into expansiveness by taking the opportunity of viewing the demonstration as the inspiration for your rocket fuel? That means that the end result could finally be very different for you. Of course, what we want to say is there's no end result. There's just this result, because you are a never-ending, ongoing, infinite being, and let that help your awakening. What's taking place right now is an exceptional opportunity for your awakened state, because what it can do is it can make people finally just go, I've just had my guts full of this fear. I've had my guts full of it. And that's where fear can serve you to finally pivot and move in another direction. Otherwise, when you're not recognizing that fear is pretty much your byline for your life anyway, but you kind of got used to it, it's not too bad. I've pretty much gotten used to the dose of heroin that I give myself every day, and I'm fairly operational on it. So I'll just go ahead and just keep giving myself the same dose. Well, holy crap, they're upping the dose on me. So am I going to keep doing the heroin, or am I to get off the needle and get into an extraordinary place?
Exactly. I am laughing because I just used that magic carpet analogy just the other day. Okay, so
how we doing so far?
We're batting 100.
Man, we just got right out of the gate, didn't we? Wow.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, it's about being in that intuitive place, which is when you're fully connected, heart to soul. And then the information it's a free flow. It's not that you're sitting down and meditate for an hour. It's just constantly flowing. You don't even see it separate from yourself anymore. That's when you're no longer in separation. It's not that I'm tuning in specifically for a message. It's that I'm just going about my day and we're getting information and the information pops in and we're just rolling with it. So I think that's really important. And I totally agree that this time has been phenomenal. It's been scary and it's been hard for a lot of people. But when you are working to use your light, and see, this is where I have felt the most sadness, is realizing that we are meant to use this opportunity and all the work that we've done all of these years to dissipate and dissolve evil and the intentions that are spread by fear. Like, this is where you take it outside of yourself and say, you know what? This is the part of what we're created or has been created that we don't want anymore. It's not the systems, it's the fear that is propagated by everybody, whether it's a system or your next door neighbor. That's the issue, is not the system. The issue is the fear and the lack of love. And so what I have felt in this time is that we're not getting it. It's like, people, all of us, we're to use this light that comes from here, that's from our soul connection, and all the higher beings that are here to assist us when we call on them, to shift the tide of the fear, to help those people, we're just going to go with people, the people and the beings behind those people, right? Sending love and light to change that energy, to transmute that energy, to dissolve that energy. And then, yes, you have freedom, but we have to be working. And for me, in the Atlantis piece, it's that I was in the understanding, and it stays with me so strongly, that we as light workers, masters of light, were divided ourselves. This light worker group felt that this part was most important, and this one felt this one was important. And so we could not get over the fact that we're just to be using light basically to dissipate evil and fear, right? Instead, we had agendas. And we too need, again, not to have agendas. We need to just be working to raise the vibration, send the love out, so that what needs to be dissipated can be. So for me, that's been the part where I've really seen, wow, maybe we all need to have a big powwow together and be like, hey, we need to be using our abilities that we've worked all this time to hone and to connect and all, right? Yeah. What do you think, Brad? Go ahead, tell me.
If I was to ask you, or let's say, if I was to ask everyone who's on the call that you have been asking for change, how many of them realize that change just doesn't mean one aspect changes, or what you think change means that only that changes? How many people understand that in order to change, everything has to change. You have to tear it all down to rebuild it back up. And I believe
it's like relationships are that way. You know, couples that want to change something, they can identify a singular thing for a moment that maybe went wrong in the relationship. And we all know it's not just that one singular thing. It just happens to be the red flag in the moment. But you've got to restructure the baseline all the way around. And that's what this, to us, looks like. It's kind of exciting, actually. It's like, oh, right, here we go. Let's get serious, about creating change. Let's not just talk about, having a new president. Okay, let's not just talk about, whether we're going to stop calling people whatever somebody's perception of the inappropriate title is for them, the politically correct. Let's not, let's start shredding all of this down. This is like blowing out a house that we're redoing and taking everything down to the studs and really identifying our design framework, that we get to do with each other, right? It's either really scary for people or people really dig it. It's like, wow, I get to do everything here, right? Do you have a support system in that redesign? You do. From the light workers that are authentically demonstrating that themselves. That's kind of interesting right now too. And we don't need to get into, we're not going to name any names or get into that dialogue. But this is a time for people to see things. You get to see things for yourself. What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? What is the projection field of that? The vibration of your essence is what is going to be the framework for your holographic projection for your reality. Everybody talks about that. Everybody talks about that. And this is such an interesting time as we've stayed focused, some of the opportunities that have unfolded and unleashed themselves. And we've been going, wow, isn't that interesting how that showed up by staying consistent, in that field versus a lot of the chaos that has ensued, for people. But change is generally fairly uncomfortable for human beings, which is why they're so resistant to it until they change that perspective and find the adventure and the excitement in it and the new and the possibility in it, right?
Do you believe or feel that would be easier to accept if you are, if you're not in the mind part? I mean, when the mind is merged, then it's not a fear of losing control, which is usually the problem with change.
Right.
So if you're merged and you have the heart, spirit, mind, soul connection going, you do, I find it fun, actually, because I love getting the little bit of things that I would never do. I was explaining it to someone the other day when I hear things like, say yes, and you're like, okay, and then I didn't even read the email, and later I find out, oh wow, I agreed to do that. That's fantastic. Okay, and then but it's because if I had read it, I probably would have thought about it and da 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 da. Anyway, and so then you get into that whole change business, and I don't really want to do that right now. That's not the right time. Blah blah blah. Right? We get into all those things, so we don't follow what our intuition says, or I call it, I've moved to divine intuition, divine truth, divine trust, because we're looking to be at that, not in this place right here, right in this 3D. I didn't get to see what somebody's written. Go ahead.
When your frequency is high, the change is never scary. It's always exciting.
It's just something
because
different.
Everything is going to show up in that accordance to your projection. It's only scary when you're unsure of your own self, of what is going to show up. Oh gosh, this could really go bad. How many people are like, this could really go bad. and getting yourself in a state of mind where actually there's no way this could go bad, because that's just not in alignment. It will be vast and varied, and then it's a fun 31 flavor smorgasbord thing of which one I want to try right now. But when you are in the set knowing that all is well in your own love projection field, that change is not scary. It can be marginally inconvenient with some of the things that pop up, but you're in that creative flow and you're like, it's okay, because I am creating everything, but I can create anything that I choose given my options, because I can expand those options based on who I am. It's only the uncertainty of what could derail you that frightens everyone. And that means that your frequency is down in this muck where this unpleasantry can take place. So you need to climb aboard. It's always the answer to be up in the fields. And you were talking about the stabilization of that. I'm just stable. I'm in that all the time. I'm in that space. And it stabilizes your world in the sense that there's nothing to be fearful. It doesn't stabilize it in the sense of boredom or no choices or mundane. It just stabilizes the aspect of what the experience, no matter what it's going to be, ends up being built on foundational.
Agreed. I think that's a very important explanation, because that's what we're looking for. And that's a lot of what this time has shown a lot of us, is that it's that foundational energy. You have to move up your baseline and it has to become the foundation. So there's not that dip. Rather that you just come here, and it might be a short regroup sometimes because we're human, but it's not a very long one, and it's not very long before the next piece comes in.
Right.
And all of this is super awesome, because I want to share with everybody that they have the power to bring their foundational frequency up.
Yeah.
And that they can be using their light to create. This is what we do. That's how it's done. It's not just magic. I've been really big on this lately. The miracles really aren't miracles. So I'd love to hear your or Julius's. I know you've been channeling all this time anyway, because you just are, it's embodied. So that's what happens. But explain to people about how magic and miracles really aren't.
So a miracle master is only the unexpected showing up. That's really what it is. That all that means is that you had a predetermined mindset as to only certain ways that something could occur, and it ended up occurring a completely different way. And you can't accept that could be an ongoing possibility. So it's a singular one-hit wonder component of a miracle or a magic occurring. When you get into the flow of always creating in the now, miracles are your norm, because you never fall back to your previous state of regurgitating and reoccurring an outcome that was previously accepted by you, and you never broaden your acceptance. So human beings get set in what they accept, and anything that falls out of the parameters of acceptance is either a miracle or a magic. When you are in a constant state of broadening your acceptance, then what shows up simply is a reflection of a possibility, because all things are possible when you live in the now. They're only minimalized when you're living constantly in a previous state and can only accept the way something showed up before. So this comes into living in the now state. I live in miracles. I live in magic because I live in the now, and in the now, all potential exists. in previous limited potential was experienced and therefore in your mind exists. But thank goodness, even that's an illusion, because as you expand and unfold, so does all knowing and all possibility of thought. But the practice of this state has got to be what you become in an ongoingness. You can't visit this just occasionally, or when the times get tough, or when you really think you finally want something, and so you're going to work really hard for it. This is that kind of, just being in that state, and you integrate your intentions always to be in this place. And human embodiments will say, well, that's just too much work. It's just too much work to be working on my consciousness all the time. And we're like, really? That's more exhausting than giving into your unconscious state and then having to try to clean it up later on? Well, everybody will finally understand that it's only hard if you perceive that it is. And that everybody can step into an easement. This is easy. This is flowing. This is concurrent. This is magnificent. And so it is, okay?
People think they don't think. Yet, your brain is receiving information all the time.
Right.
All the time. That's what its function is. And if you change the way you think and change what you think about, your life changes.
And we hear this all the time, and we teach this, and we teach this, and we teach this, and you teach this, and the practitioners teach this in all different formats, and the students, and they hear it, and they hear it, and they hear it. Somewhere it clicks. And you light up, and your field changes. You get to see what you are able to see is astounding to you. What you didn't see before, then without judging that, but moving into light and joy over the aspect of your new clarity, then that's that inner child then coming out to dance. That's the soul leading the way, rather than the altered ego state, which will always judge you for everything that you've done wrong in the previous, which will bind you with shackles on your journey. You're ready to cut those loose and hold your space. That's what's going on right now. This blatant, undeniable demonstration of what is out there and what has been subtly binding you, which is now very blatantly binding you, is a gift to you, for you, by your own self, to initiate the momentum in the other direction. That's what we see. And anything that you focus on and accept, again, becomes your reality. Because if you have people listening to your program, we already know they're teetering on the love side at the very least, if not fully engaged over here. Because we're same with us. You're just not going to draw the fear-based judgmental audience. We just aren't. So that's great news. So you've got this collective, okay, that's already shifting, and they already know that their reality is different than these people over here who are so anger and fear-based. And we just got to keep everybody on that wave, and assure them that as that peaks up, that this extraordinary is waiting over here for them.
So are we all living in our own separate reality?
Yes, of course, because you are all expanding source, which is all thought and possibility, in an infinite amount of ways. So no two souls are going to perceive a thought the same way. It's not designed that way. You can have a momentum of thought based on love, or a momentum of thought based on fear. And then it will fractalize itself in a demonstration with either one of those foundational points. So nobody is going to think or feel exactly alike. And that's spectacular. Otherwise, there would be limitation to what you could be or what you could know. but to stay consistent on what's feeding the energy of what the mass variation can demonstrate is a wonderful thing to know and catch that wave, because non-judgment lives in the area of love.
Okay, so I wanted to read a question that somebody asked. Kay Paulson is asking, manifestation is a tangible form is her issue. Divine timing is what I am waiting for. I can have the highest moment in consciousness and nothing comes up or changes at all.
Then you are not in your highest form of consciousness, Master, because it does change in that point. Well, you're not recognizing it. So here's the thing. You don't choose to manifest. You are always manifesting, okay? You are a manifesting machine. Everything in your life, you are manifesting. And you are either still holding it in a reality that's demonstrating itself because you've accepted that is, or you decide to finally create something in a little bit different format, or pivot and get a whole new design frame for yourself. And you're in a process of trying to convince yourself that you have the ability to create something different. And so your manifestation is actually being launched from a point of not knowing, okay? Manifestation occurs the moment you know it does. It doesn't show up when you believe in it. It shows in it the minute that the belief shifted to knowing. Everything that is happening in your life, you know it is, and so it's there. Everything that you want, you're not sure, you don't think is in your life yet, and you're trying to believe that it is, and it's going to take as long as it takes you to know it before it shows up. The divine timing, it sounds like you're waiting for something outside of yourself to deliver you something, and that's the fault as well. You are this energy. You are the universe bringing your reality to your own self, and once you click that knowing into place, everything shows up the minute you know it. You've just forgotten what knowing feels like. So as you refine your processes into understanding what knowing feels like, you'll attach knowing to anything that you want to show up, and it will show up that fast. So you are experiencing a conjecture period, okay? You are trying to convince your own self that something is going to show up, and however long it takes you to convince yourself, that's what you're experiencing. The moment you know it does, it does. The problem is that human beings have decided to take the position of accepting something being there once it shows up. And that's the backdoor application. Something doesn't show up and then you know it is. It showed up the moment you knew it.
Well, then they don't understand manifestation.
They don't understand what knowing feels like.
Right.
You aren't being taught what it is to know versus what it is to believe or hope for, okay? That's the precarious pivot. For students who know that they are source, then they know that what they think and feel is. When people don't know that they are source and are waiting for some type of thing out here to click in, you're going to have a long wait based on however long it takes for you to know it. Those who seemingly manifest readily know that they are, and those who think that they aren't manifesting consistently are in that state of conjecture, convincing themselves from belief to knowing.
Okay.
Conscious will teach you.
Question, gotta ask this. I love it. I love what you are saying. If they find themselves in this state of conjecture and not in a state of knowing, because that's what you are saying. This is
Right.
what it boils down to.
Right.
How do they make that shift? Because
Okay.
that is
it's the key. It's the key that nobody else is teaching. Nobody else is teaching is how to teach you how to know that you know something. Okay? So we take you through a process of understanding what you already know and get you in alignment with what that feels like. It's gone numb on everybody. Okay? It's gone numb. Your day in, day out life is everything you know.
Right.
And you have forgotten what that feels like because you never expand what you know. So it's gone numb on you. Right? So we're gonna use a great example. And only the women out there are gonna understand what we're talking about. Okay? We're gonna use a great example.
Okay.
All summer long, you've been wearing shorts. All summer long, you've been wearing shorts. And for months, you've been wearing shorts. And the weather turns cold, and that first time you put on a pair of jeans that you haven't worn, don't they feel kind of weird? Especially if you've shaved your legs, right? And you're like, wow, what is that? What is that? Okay, well, all summer long, you've gone numb really to what your legs even feel like until you step into it after a while. And this is what your life is like. Your life becomes so mundane. You become literally desensitized to your own emotional state of knowing. And then you're trying to muster it. Well, maybe you aren't because nobody's even told you it's about knowing. Now you're trying to muster something else and you just aren't even familiar with the component. Where if you are constantly expanding what you know, you become very familiar with that state. It is an absolute unfaltering state. You all know what it feels like because you've had situations where something has turned up and you go, man, I knew that was going to happen, right?
Yes.
And you go, okay, well, stop right there. Back up. When was that point that you knew it? Well, I think I knew it after I talked to my brother. That moment, and we're like, and that's it. Now, conjure that, focus on that, pause that, and marinate in it. And you're going to start to practice that emotional state. And then we're going to start to practice showing you how to apply that to a thought. But it's the knowing that humans have deadened for themselves through familiarity.
Do you think that source doesn't lack?
So as source, do you imagine that source has any form of lack to it? Any form of lack to it? Most people would say, well, of course not. I would say, well, that's you. That's you. You have just accepted or know that you have lack. But there are souls living in physical embodiments that are not even limited by their physical embodiments. And that is a truth. And that's because they have come to their steadfast knowing. And they can readily go in and out and shape it and shift it. Whether you believe that or true is irrelevant. It is a truth. Because that is what it is to be God. Okay? So when somebody is, and when you are fixated on trying to get something that you don't have, Master, you will never get what you're looking for until you love what you have now. And then you are expanding from love, and that is the expedited journey. When you are trying to get something because you're unhappy, that puts up that wall, or what you would say the divine timing that's taking so long. So there's a huge component to mastering that art. And we don't want that to be discouraging for you. What we want you to know is that it's a natural byproduct of awareness. And that's what an expanded conscious journey is.
So much there. Brad, I know you wanted to say something. So
I'm good. I'm good. Sorry.
You are good now? Did she cover it?
Yeah.
Okay, because I have a question. And here's my next question. Would you like to take some live calls?
Sure.
All right, so people, you need to raise your hands, and we will take some live calls. Now, I want to ask you something in your interpretation of this. I love what you said. That was a great expansion on being source, and the idea, I got totally what you said about knowing that you are not limited by this body, this circumstance, etc., is the next level. That would be your next step for people. So in that case, this is where I have my own little thingy about divine timing as it relates to other people. Like, let's say we have people on the call who are wanting to know where their mate is, right? And they're being told, well, your mate is coming, or they're not here yet, or who knows what, but it's divine timing. How does that apply then? If you are source creator, but it's reliant on another person being connected to their source creator.
It's never reliant on another person for you to know that you are source master. Ever.
No, not that you're source, but I'm talking about divine timing with regard to like your mate coming in.
Well, the first thing that we want to support, and we know this is going to charge a whole aspect of controversy, but we're going to say it anyway.
Do it anyway.
You don't have just one soulmate.
Correct.
You don't have twin flames. You are all the same source. So every single soul out there has the potential to light up your field in an aspect of expansiveness.
You just put a requirement.
If you collectively decide that's going to be your experience, whoever convinced you that there's one soul that is going to follow you, good, holy hell, how limiting is that? Okay? That's
good. So everybody should be excited to hear this.
For sure, because what you are doing is this. You will always connect energetically with another soul in relationship. That's how it works. Whether it's a friendship, whether it's a business relationship, whether it's a love relationship, your energy field is going to determine who matches that field and comes in and interacts with you. So generally speaking, when it comes to any form of a relationship, most embodiments would say, I want it to be expansive. I want it to be unlimited. I want it to be full of love and unconditional love and extraordinary. And you become that energy. And everybody that you have an interaction with falls into that category. You have the most extraordinary friendship. You have the most extraordinary... And we are guaranteeing you that you're going to be inundated with choices. Okay? That is the way it works. Unless you think there's only one out there. Wow! Out of almost 9 billion people here on this earth ship, you have fun with that limited perspective and finding the way that soul's going to... And just like you said, Master, you've already got that in your wheelhouse, that more than likely, what is the odds that this is going to show up? We will tell you that there are people walking on this earth ship that have never run short of the most extraordinary relationships that walk through aspects of expansion for them, especially when they know they do. Versus that person who's just sitting there waiting. Work on your field and interact with people. Interact with people. Up your odds, okay? We are guaranteeing you that there is no type of a being sitting out here that is selecting who's going to be with whose soul, and screwing with some of you and working really well with others. It's right here. And if you ask people who have an extraordinary relationship with another person, they will generally tell you that they didn't plot and plan it before it showed up. They knew it was going to show up, and they said, hey, I like you pretty much. Let's see how it goes.
That's right. I'm still saying that to my husband 19 years later. Now, 25 years later.
Right.
Let's just see how it goes.
Let's just see how it goes.
But you know, the fun part about any relationship is that even as we all evolve, they all have to evolve. And it's not that we have to throw them away, but everybody has the choice whether they're going to evolve with it or not, right?
You both either grow. Well, you grow. You either grow together or you grow apart.
Yes.
It's one or the other, because either you're an energetic match or you're not an energetic match. And there's no way that if you're not energetic matches that you're going to stay together.
Right.
That's just the law of the universe.
Yeah, and human embodiments have to also get out of their mindset that length equals success. That length equals success.
It could just equal stupidity. Anyway,
it could equal nothing more than extreme limitation and fear for you. Is that lockdown? It could just be a prison sentence for a lot of people.
Yes.
If you have the mindset that you're going into an interaction knowing that it is going to expand you, it does. And if you know that it will expand you through love and possibility, and you certainly have that collaborated attitude from the other person, and so it is. You are correct, Master, that you cannot dominate and control another being. Everybody knows it. Anybody who's ever had the experience of unrequited love knows that it doesn't work that way. Okay, but it's also a demonstration of love of self. Okay, you always hear you're going to attract an aspect of love that equals the aspect of love that you hold for yourself. Always, always. Okay, because that relationship is a mere conscious reflective action of your perspective of self. So if you want an elevated and expansive state of interaction, you must get an elevated state of love and appreciation and honor for your own self. And that mirror always shows up, always.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. Which is great because, again, you can either accept that it's a positive or it's a negative, right?
Well, it's the key also to a conscious journey. It just is. There's so much. We support that. There's teachings. We support a teaching known as the 7 levels of consciousness, or the 7 seals of consciousness, for humans that walk the humans through the ascension process based on levels of consciousness. And more people on the Earth ship are in level 1 and 2 rather than 6 or 7, and they just think they can just take a few courses or read a couple of books or attend a couple of workshops and all things are resolved. And it's a long progressional state, but it's a long progressional state of joy and magnificence and extraordinary. And it's the type of thing that shows results immediately the minute you start to move. You don't have to wait up here for the bing to start showing up. It shows up every step of the way. But you've got to have the mindset also of not being in a hurry, because you're never going to run out. If you're in a hurry, you are in limitation. You believe that you have a time expiration to achieve something, and that is not knowing that you are source. And so you will get to experience that over and over and over again until you let go of that and work in the moment of now and find that field of joy and bliss from that perspective.
Wow. All right, everyone. I love it. I think that's fantastic. All because the human experience keeps us on our toes.
It does.
But when you have the understanding that when you're connected, it continues to roll. I'm never bored.
And, you know, if you could remember what it is to be sourcefully, you would never be bored. When you understand the thought options and the emotional options ultimately that are there, you would be in such an extraordinary state. You will be, as you develop that remembrance, as you master the components of your chosen thought perspective. It is the most empowering state. It's an aspect of understanding that the ego has grown to an altered ego state and is now dominating your field of convincing. The ego is not a bad thing. When you inserted yourself into a physicality, when you decided to walk on the earth ship that you created because you loved it so much, you wanted to interact with it fully, but you knew you had to take on a physical third-dimensional embodiment in order to interact with the third-dimensional field that you had created, because as light, you pass through matter. So to touch it, taste it, feel it, smell it, hear it, see it, you had to take on a third-dimensional component. And when you did that, you created a spark of what is known as an ego for your embodiment for safety purposes, okay? This was a tiny little aspect of you that would warn you to not step into the fire or to get yourself in from out of the rain, or maybe not confront that beast that is snarling at you. It was a tiny fragment for a minuscule application of survival called an ego. And in its proper application, it assists you on the physical realm. But you allowed that ego to become overinflated and filled with fear. And it grew to what we refer to as the altered ego state. And that has become your dominant thought field. On a conscious journey, you basically put it back down into its place where it doesn't hinder you at all anymore. In fact, it assists you in your expansiveness. And all of that is the yin and the yang. That's originally what we support that symbol is for, is it represents the dot of the original origin of the ego that is grown into the altered ego state and throw everything off kilter. As you grow in your high state of consciousness, your ego returns and your extraordinary knowing is the consistent rather than the convincing that you are not what you are.
Yes, well said. I have long said you cannot kill the ego. The ego must be in alignment, but it is not at the top of it's not at the top of the food chain.
Although it wants to be.
Actually, you want it to be, because you're the one that chose to get it out of hand with fear, because the position of victimhood became so convenient for you.
Say that again.
You chose to overinflate it and make it a dominant field through your own fears because it is so convenient to be a victim. It is so convenient to be a victim. Then you are not responsible for the stuff that's hitting the fan in your life. It comes back to accountability. But what you don't understand is accountability is power. That's the creative component of empowerment. And then, of course, you chose to set yourselves out to disempower everybody else because you were feeling disempowered. So the only way that you could feel power was to extract power from somebody else. And that all, snowballed effect into nobody wanting to accept that they're God. In fact, you've come up with a punishment system for the majority, for those who dare even think in that component. But thankfully, there's an aspect of the percentage here that is gladly accepting that truth, understanding that that unleashes compassion, not tyranny, and authentic, unconditional love and honoring of each other, and it dissipates every form of violence or segregation known to man.
So important. All of it is so important, especially now, because we want everyone to understand this part. It's what we started talking about, and then we've almost come full circle, is the ability to be the light. You are the light. It is not out here, up there, and all around, but it is within you and blah, blah, blah. So it is being that. I always see it as I see us like lighthouses. I really do. I just always see it like we're that lighthouse. That light is just going round and round and round, right? And that's who we're here to be, the beacons of light, and that's how I see them. But it's an exciting thing. So for someone asked a question, Tara's asking, what do we suggest for people in fear for a variety of reasons? So whatever their reasons are, how do they step on the other side of that, or at least try to have access to something different? How are they making that shift?
Well, the first thing that they have to recognize is what they are afraid of and move away from it. Literally, okay? What is triggering the fear for you, and disconnect from that trigger. And people just don't want to do that. They're like fearaholics. They're addicts to this fear. They'll say, well, I just can't because, this is, and we're like, just stop. Just stop using the word can't. Just stop that, okay? And you've literally got to start watching, turn it off, promise yourself you're going to come off of the news feed. You're going to come off of the social media feed for 30 days. Oh God, I need to know what's going on. Why do you have to be saturated with that fear? Well, I just have to know what's going on. And we say, well, then, okay, you can master the art of detachment, but you're not there yet. We can teach you how to detach from all of that fear so that you can be informed without being engaged. But most people can't master that. So the first thing is you've got to literally get away from some of the things that are causing fear for you. And when you do that, your nervous system will start to calm down. There'll be a margin of calm. And when that happens, your brain will have the opportunity to clear up or defog itself, and you can start to capture some new thought possibilities. This is how people start to work on their conscious journey, okay? Then you're you're basically deregulating yourself. Then you're going to move away from another portion of fear. Your nervous system is going to start to reset itself, and the brain is going to be able to start to capture something new. So those are literal. So whatever you're doing in your day, you've got to change things up. You've got to change what you're eating, who you're keeping company with, what's literally feeding your mind, and who you're interacting with. You've got to start to change things up. And we tell our students, for the first time in your life, you literally make a game plan for yourself to do something different every week that you've never done before, ever. And we love the application. Go to a children's museum on a Saturday. Watch some kind of program. That is the funnest thing you've ever done in your whole life, we'll guarantee you. Because when you walk into that field, you walk into pure creativity, okay? There's plenty of things that you can do. And everybody's going to be like, oh, well, no, you got to social distance and put that mask on. We're like, okay, well, then take a virtual tour of the Children's Museum because they're all doing that now. But you've got to break your pattern. Fear is the toughest pattern to break because you don't recognize the pattern, okay? Most people can recognize smoking or drinking or, they eat too much, they shop too much, but fear itself is invisible. And people cannot recognize that pattern, okay? But if you have limitation in your life, you have a pattern of fear going on in your life. And you've got to start disrupting every component of your life and see if you can break up where that fear is coming from and start to do new things. You know, you were never designed to sit still. You never designed it that way. You designed it so you would be creating something new all the time. And you would be using the demonstration of somebody else's creativity as inspiration to spark something new for yourselves. Not repeat it, not to copy it, and you all fell into fear. That's what we're talking about. That's fear covered up, and you can't see it. And you've got to make a decision that I'm ready to recognize what is holding me or binding me and start to break up that field. That's where it starts. It's like shattering the glass that has been blinding you from, that's been stopping you from reaching out the window. There's some kind of a force field here. We're like, pick up the hammer, would you? Just pick up the hammer and you can stick it. No, I might get cut. Really? That could be worse than just staying stuck in the room, right? So fear itself is what most people don't see. And to find a recognition of what you don't see, start to change things up, because we'll guarantee you'll start to recognize your comfort and uncomfort zone once you start doing that.
So you would say then that if you aren't sure what your fear is, would you say then in your explanation that your fear is what it is that you are avoiding doing?
Yeah, and it's your comfort zone. It really is your comfort zone.
Right.
Okay.
Not stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So whatever you avoid doing, this is
oh.
what you need to tackle straight away.
And
now, what we want to say is, look at what's going on right now. Isn't this been the best opportunity to learn how to do things differently? Hasn't it been? Every business, every practitioner, every school teacher, every student, everything has had the opportunity to do it differently. Everybody's been able to push their creative minds into another aspect. So this has been extraordinary for them, right?
Yes.
Do you love that has been an opportunity, or do you resent that has been what has taken place? And that's a deciphering component as to where you are on your
Do
conscious.
we have to love all of it though?
Yeah. You get to.
I'm going to just tell the truth. I have not loved the homeschooling. Okay. So that's my truth, everyone. Just
But
so you
that's
know.
that's only because the homeschooling is still trying to be bound by traditional education format.
True.
If homeschooling would completely restructure itself, then it could be extraordinary. All you've done is tried to, not you personally, but the system has tried to still stick to a rigid format.
Yes, true.
And only throw one monkey wrench. The whole thing gets to be restructured, because we will guarantee you that education systems are only about 200 to 300 years old, okay, in a structured format. And all of you got to expand your intelligence prior to 300 years ago. How did you do that, right? Great opportunity in all of this, recognizing that children are individuals, that learning is individuals, that it's creative and it's constructive and it's extraordinary, and that maybe that's the way the systems coming back online, when they do come online, could recalibrate every aspect. So it's a cool thing to have this going on.
Certainly has made everybody look at things, and that's a good thing. Rigidity, when you were speaking, it reminded me that whenever you're rigid about anything, that is what needs to change. is the rigidity to the way it's been done because it's always been done that way, or this is what's expected because that's always what's expected. And that's another avenue for people to reflect on in their own life. So this whole idea about self-empowerment being your key to your higher consciousness. Is that what we're saying?
They're equal, Master. So as you grow your consciousness, you come into your self-empowerment. And it's a convincing process for you. We understand that. You have to get convinced of all of that because you've been shown otherwise in every aspect of your own life. Mm-hmm. One thing that we did want to support and point out is that there was a time when a conscious journey teaching or philosophy was held very separate from mainstream lifestyle. That it was a woo-woo thing. You really had to go put, hide away in a cave with a turban on your head and only eat leaves off of a tree and, that type of thing. And then there were the normal people walking on the earth ship. And that didn't play into their reality. In fact, competition really fed that aspect of reality. But we want to support that a high state of consciousness is the resolution in every component of everybody's type of life. Even corporate America is starting to get that a little bit. We've got students who are CEOs of major companies or businesses, and they're integrating high consciousness into the way that they do business because they're finding ways now that that's the result of limitation. So consciousness is applicable. It's applicable no matter what you're creating for your own self because it equals empowerment, and that's always the position that you want to be in when you're creating something.
Okay. Do you have last words?
Though
Guidance.
It at times feels helpless, hopeless, repetitive, and that it's terrifying and painful, and you just want to check out, or you just want to cry, or you just want to scream, that there are other choices. That's what we can absolutely guarantee you. You are the most extraordinary beings. And to assist the coming back to even part of that knowing can change everything that is terrifying you. You will always exist, always, and you will do it in all ways. Let that assist you to calm you, to release you, and to help develop you. Masters, keep listening to these types of programmings. Participate, engage, search. No, this is your solution, and we press onto you the ability to do it.
Very good. Brad, any last words?
Nope. They
did it.
It's just funny for me.
That's exactly. It was really lovely. I thank you both for being here and everyone for joining us and participating in the chat. I appreciate it. Love you, Brad, Kasey, and Julius. Judy says, thank you for this beautiful night with all of you. Blessings and gratitude. Wow. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I just love being with all of you. I love the energy and absolutely had a great time with all of you, Kasey, Brad, and Julius. Much love to you. We'll see you all live next week on the Soulscape show. Go out to soulscape.tv to watch the replay of this wonderful show and to receive the free gifts from Kasey, Brad, and Julius. All right. Thank you, everyone. Mwah! Much love to you. Namaste. Bye-bye.